I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere, and you can go there too. Good news.
Hi, this is Pastor Rob Wright of Abundant Grace Church, and I want to thank you for listening to our broadcast, Grace for Today, heard right here on KKVV Christian Radio every Sunday at 8:30, Mondays and Wednesdays at 1:30, and now on Friday at 1:30 as well. Don't forget, Grace for Today, heard right here on KKVV Christian Radio, Sundays at 8:30, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1:30 p.m. Tune in and be blessed.
Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is good and pleasing and perfect. The whole being of a person must engage in prayer. A person's life, heart, temper, and mind should be in it. Every fiber of a person should join in the prayer exercise. A person's intellect must also add energy when praying. Necessarily, the mind plays a role in prayer. First of all, one thinks about praying. The intellect teaches us that we ought to pray. By serious thinking beforehand, the mind prepares itself for approaching the throne of grace. Thought proceeds entering into prayer and prepares the way. It considers what will be asked in prayer. Dear God, as I approach your throne of grace, I want to give my all to you, body, mind, and soul. Fred Hodges, KKVV, Las Vegas.
You're listening to KKVV Las Vegas.
At Johnny Walker RVs, they believe the best way to live life is one trip at a time. Why sit around bored and bogged down by life's stresses when you can take time to explore this great country? Whether camping in the mountains or fishing at the lake, Johnny Walker RVs can help solve your weekend boredom troubles. Johnny Walker RVs always has the best inventory with over 200 units in stock. They have travel trailers, toy haulers, fifth wheels, and motorhomes, including their best-selling Allegro products by Tiffin. On site and ready to get you to your next adventure. See their full inventory and great prices at jwrv.com. Let's get rolling. Your first trip is on them. They're proud of their 50 years, 4 generations, and thousands of happy campers. Call 702-458-2092 or visit jwrv.com. Better yet, stop in today to one of Johnny Walker RV's 3 locations on Boulder Highway. Don't get bored. Get on the road to fun at Johnny Walker RVs.
Tune in to Save the Lost at All Costs, heard every Sunday at 3:02 p.m. on KKVV. Are you between a rock and a hard place? Not sure if you're a sinner or a saint? Not sure if you lost your salvation? Not sure about anything? Well, tune in to Save the Lost at All Costs, heard every Sunday at 3:02 p.m. on KKVV.
Before driving on busy freeways, know which ones are open with no construction, no accidents. The Nevada Department of Transportation's 511 travel information. Dial 511 or visit nevadadot.com.
Sponsored by NDOT and aired in cooperation with the Nevada Broadcasters Association and this station.
Welcome to Open Book Radio Club, a membership program of like-minded people. Your words should be heard to increase awareness of what you do. Become a part of a growing community and let Open Book Radio Club highlight you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Open Book Radio Club. You know, I'm delighted every Saturday to talk to you, and so I'm glad you're tuning in. I know you told your friends, and I know you know the number, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Local is 702-650-5588. That's 702-650-5588. And long distance, if you're listening or looking at us on the internet, and that's 1-800-366-8884. 888-472-5783. I'm giving the numbers out in the beginning because this show is going to be so excited. And I don't want to have to stop to give the numbers out. So please put that in your phone. Get ready because you are going to be delighted. It is a subject that I think everyone should know about. And I am so happy to have him here. So before I introduce him, I'm going to read his bio, and then I'm going to give you the opportunity to start listening, and if you have questions, make sure you call, okay? I can't believe that Mr. Mosby is here with us. So I'm going to tell you that he graduated cum laude with honors from the University of Missouri-Rolla. Okay. School of Mines and Metallurgy.
Yes.
Okay, so that has to do with metals, correct?
Yes.
Fantastic. He has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Petroleum Engineering, and Mr. Mosley is a father of twin boys, which I saw the picture, and they look just like you. And he has wonderful grandchildren. Now, I saw the few that was in there, but I wasn't sure that you had more, so I didn't want to put a number. How many grandchildren do you
Number
have?
5 now. Just had a little boy born about 4 months ago.
Oh, fantastic. So he is a grandfather of 5. His book is about living, loving, failing, and recovering. He is an author and a motivational speaker who enjoys helping others and getting them back on track. And I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm glad to be here.
I am so excited that you contacted us and that you want to tell your story. So before we begin, I have this first question that I know the audience is going to want to know, because I know they see this big sign in the back, and this is the cover of his book. We also have it right here, which is what I'm holding up, and I know you can see it. And so you see that big word, hell, and a near-death experience. So my first question is, why did you want to write a book? Most people want to keep that a secret because they think people won't believe them. So why did you want to write a book?
Yeah, it definitely could be covered under a fiction title, but it's definitely a true story. I was wrapped up in drug and alcohol use for many, many years of my life. And like everybody that's had problems where they decide to medicate them to numb the feelings, not face the facts, the avoidance part of it, go through many, many different problems as a result of drugs and alcohol. My story is a slight bit different because, as you've seen on the market these days, there's a lot of popular stories out right now about heaven. People dying and having a heaven experience, whether it be a field or a valley or angels or seeing their life pass before them or what have you. Something like that happened to me, unfortunately, but fortunately, I believe, in 1988. And this is how sad and sick my disease was. On Christmas Day, I overdosed smoking cocaine.
I read it.
Very deadly way to use drugs, and I had a heaven experience. My heaven experience was more like a judgment chamber, beautiful, angelic, thousands of angelic figures. You can read the book to, see all the details, but that happened to me, and, I knew something was going on. Just thought I had a second chance. The guy I was with gave me mouth-to-mouth and resuscitated me with, pumping my chest, and maybe that was the reason I got to come back. Maybe it was this guy who was giving me a second chance. I believe it was to give me a second chance. And unfortunately, I continued not to talk about my feelings and my problems and continued to avoid them using drugs and alcohol. And 10 years later, it happened again. Again, overdosed, my heart stopped. And this time, I didn't accelerate upward to see heaven. I had a huge acceleration downward and saw hell. And I figured people needed to hear that because you don't hear about hell experiences, because I firmly believe, Brenda, that when you die and you go to hell, you're dead and you're done. But there's something that saved my life in there, along with God's never-ending mercy and forgiveness, but something I did. It's very powerful that Jesus taught his disciples that I believe brought me back and gave me my second chance.
Yes.
So my story is a little different than in that regard of my drug and alcohol use. So I wanted to get the story out there so that families could have hope, because the families are the ones get hurt the most.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Tear your families apart, and they worry about you. And I wanted them to have this book to read, to see how sick I was, to see that if they just hang in there and keep praying, that their loved ones can get clean and sober take care of the addiction, whether it be from gambling, drugs, alcohol, sex, suicide, hurt themselves, whatever, even from overworking. And also for the addict still suffering, to give them hope, because it gets desperate.
Yes.
Especially when you want to stop and you can't.
Yes. I tell you, I started reading it, and I was supposed to be typing up my 10 questions that I always do, audience, which you know. And I was so busy reading it, I forgot that I was supposed to do the questions. It is so good. And the questions that I'm asking are questions that you will want to know, but I don't want to give you too much because I definitely want you to read the book. So my next question is you, which is something that I saw that's different, and I've been doing this Open Book Radio show for since 2008, and I've read a lot of books, skimmed through a lot of books, and I found that only you did the top 10 important reasons for reading this book, and I was just so wow. So my question is, what was your most important top 10 that you listed for reading this book that you feel was the most important one?
Well, I had a very good friend of mine say I should do something like that funny, like David Letterman's top 10. And just to let you know, the 10th one is I want you to read it. But the other thing is it might save your life or someone you know.
Yes.
And most people have been touched by some type of addiction in their life, and you never know really how bad it is. And if it can give one person hope, and the bottom line is, too, number 5 of the reasons is your mom would want you to.
Yes. I thought that was great. I was like, wow, this is so funny, but true.
Yeah.
Why do you call it a near-death experience? I know that you're here, and I understand that. But you actually died, went, came back. Died, went, came back. I mean, and nobody, like you said, they talk about heaven, they died, something happened, they went to heaven, they came back. They didn't do both. And then I only read one where the guy went to hell and came back.
Yeah.
And you call it near death, so the question is why?
Yeah, the near death is the coined term for people that have the experiences where they die, their heart stops, they're pronounced dead, in many cases by a doctor or paramedics. And then they have this vision of something else, of a heaven mainly type experience, to give them an overview of a look to do whatever it's planned for in their lives, to give them the insight to move forward and hopefully do something good with the feeling. So the near death, died, but didn't finish dying, so near death. I guess that's how it comes out.
Okay.
That's the coined phrase.
Because that's what this book says, and I'll hold it back up again. It says, a near-death experience. I died and came back from hell. You also died and came back from heaven, so that's the part that's beautiful. And that was the first part, because God is showing you then, I love you, and I don't want you to do this. Why are you doing this to yourself? I'm going to give you another opportunity. And then we tend to forget, especially if we have a demon that has taken over.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, something did happen, I don't remember. In the meantime, where's that next drink, or where's that next fix?
Yes.
And so one of my questions was, you saw that, you experienced that, and the person told you, I did this and I did that, and here you are. And I remember reading, and he was so upset, he said, get out of my house, just get out. That didn't shake you loose. You wind up going back. Why?
Yeah, I tell you, it shook me loose. The fear of consequences is what makes people change their habits a lot of times. The habit of drug and alcohol addiction is so ingrained because we practice it for so long as addicts and alcoholics of any type, that because of our events that have happened in our life and our beliefs, we've come to have a misconception of what the reality is there, and we choose to medicate our feelings instead of talking about them. So most of the time, anybody's got some type of problem that's an addiction, we'll call it addiction behavior. They have it because they've had some type of void or loss in their life that they haven't come to terms with and dealt with and talked about. Something that they feel guilty about, something that they think someone did to them. The victim mentality, where you can blame others, and when you blame others, you're always right. That's the beautiful thing for someone that has a victim mentality. They blame. They can use it to control people, to manipulate people, because they can get angry and say, I'm not going to do this, you're doing this to me, and then people do what they want them to do. So I was scared for a while, stayed clean for a couple of weeks, got rested, got well, and never dealt with the problems. So the same habit that was ingrained to avoid the problems that I had in my life continued to be solved temporarily with the same type of over-medicating and trying to hurt myself because I wasn't good enough.
Yeah. And that question came to me, and I'm sure it was by the Lord, because most people don't understand that when you have an addiction and they don't. Well, why do they keep going back? Same thing with domestic violence. You know, a lot of women deal with that, and people always ask, well, why does she keep going back to him? Well, now we can understand why.
Yes, it's addicts and people that go through this terrible process that hurts people and hurts themselves on a regular basis. I want to let everybody know, especially if you have an addict or alcoholic in your life, that addicts and alcoholics are the strongest people in the world. And I say, wow, he's tearing me apart. How can that be? People just say, how can you be so weak to continue to do that and hurt your family and lose this, and you're so talented and all this kind of stuff? Well, if they knew what it took to continue to do what it takes to get high, to be embarrassed, to let down everybody else, to come close to death, all the different things it takes because of this habit they've ingrained in themselves, they would realize that. So the bottom line, any addicts and alcoholics watching today, hopefully there's a lot of you and their family. If you can take that addictive behavior and put it into recovery behavior, getting clean and sober is just a moment away. It's just that easy.
Fantastic. Now, another thing that you said here that I thought was really important, because I'm involved in that. You're talking about the children, and you said the parents should really pay attention to the children's behavior because they can start at a young age. So I want you to answer that question. I also want to know that, did you start drinking at a young age? Because you mentioned children. So
Yes. Well, this will probably be a little bit of a conversation, because what happens, at least what I've come to believe, what happened after I ended up having to go inpatient for a long time. Fortunately, the Salvation Army Adult Rehab Center in Tucson was the facility I went to. It was a Christian recovery program that helped save my life. I needed long-term retraining because I'd had 24 years of continually doing the same things that didn't work to try and hurt myself. But I remember, as I talk about it, voids and losses is the term that I use. And Webster's Dictionary talks about as loss is about harm of separation, a longing, a feeling of wanting something else that you don't have, that causes you to have, wanting to feel it. And God He designed us to love and be loved.
yes.
So when I was 9 months old, even, I have an older brother, a younger brother, a year apart, basically a year and a half. And I'm the second and third son because I'm a twin. And my twin brother died at 9 months old. Well, I never really thought that could have bothered me. I was 9 months old, but I guess we shared a crib together, shared a bottle, shared a womb together for 9 months, or almost 9 months. And that was probably my first void and loss. Okay. Of course, no one knew about how to talk about that, because who would know that would be a problem?
Right.
And as time went along, my dad wasn't around much. Fortunately, my mother was raised with a great family, good Christian values, hard worker. She ended up getting a degree in teaching. She met my father, who was a very gregarious person, and small in stature, not a team player, but excelled in individual sports. And he taught us Golden Gloves boxing. He was a champion, and we did a little pee-wee boxing, my brothers and I. And I remember in second grade one time, my mom came home about 30 minutes later than we did, because she had to stay after school for conferences and see if kids had questions or parents. And so we would do our homework, and she would come home about 30 minutes later. And so we got good at studying, which was a real good thing, and we learned how to learn. And she got home and she said to us, she said, "Boys, I need to talk with you." And she sat us down and she said, "Well, your dad's not going to be coming back. We're getting a divorce." Well, I mean, I was 7 or 8 years old, and we worshiped him. And I didn't understand it all. And man, I cried so hard. I remember it just like it's yesterday. Kind of gets me pretty emotional. And I cried for hours. I didn't know it. Was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? I got angry at my dad. I got angry at my mom. I started developing a lot of anger. So that was my second void and loss in life. And things kind of went along, and about a month later, she came over to school and said, "Boys, I need to talk to you again." And she said, "Dad's got in trouble, and he's going to go to prison." And there had been men coming to the doors and, knocking the doors, and she would always say, "They're looking for your dad," and tell him he's working or whatever. But, she said it might be in the paper. And you got to understand, this was back in 1970, where we didn't have internet, didn't have cell phones, we didn't have all these TV channels. We had 3 channels. The most important things were church, sports, music or, that type of scenario in school.
Yes.
Okay. And we had newspapers, and everybody read them. You read the newspaper. So there might be an article in the paper about this. So I just want to let you know in case somebody says something to you at school. And sure enough, we were in Cub Scouts, and I don't know if he's listening, he might be, but little Doug Rippey, I guess I could Facebook him and find him now if I wanted to. But maybe he'll want to do that after he hears this. But he started chanting in the group of guys as we were hanging around, "Your dad's a jailbird, your dad's a jailbird." It really, really upset me, okay, because I was mad at him anyways. And so I went home that day and told my mom, and like all good parents, the comment we give to our children when something happens is, "It's okay, you'll do better next time," or in this case, "It's okay. I'm sorry you had to have that happen." He hugged me, it's all right, it's going to be okay, but you need to take that extra step, because I know you're all great parents and want to be great parents. Take the extra step, and when you say it's all right, it's okay, don't end it there. Continue to talk and tell them, this is what you do next time, or okay, we'll practice a little more on those parts you didn't like, or maybe, you're interested in soccer instead of football. You're so fast, maybe we could go ahead and put in that direction since you're not feeling comfortable doing that anymore. Give them an idea to make it okay. Because the next day I went back to school, and I made it okay in the only way I knew how, with my anger. The combinations that never really worked that great in the ring with the little pee-wee boxing worked really great on Doug Rippey's nose, and I busted his nose and got in trouble. And it was really an angry situation, and fortunately my mom was smart. What a beautiful lady she was. She's the best of mothers. Everybody will probably say theirs is better, but she, that summer we moved to a different school district to avoid that embarrassment. And then again, things continued to move along. We're doing great. She went to 3 boys' ball games, basketball, football, track, baseball, everything. Washed all those clothes by hand. I remember before we had those stain relievers, the grass stains, did all that. So we were doing great. Everything was fine. And then in 8th grade, after basketball practice, the long hair that was an athlete, the rich kid, and a cheerleader who was a little on the coy side, the wild side, had finished practice, and they were talking and said, "Let's go to the trees to smoke." And I said, "Oh, can I come with you?" And the trees were a big bunch of trees around the practice field where you could hide. And this long-haired guy brought out a funny-shaped cigarette, and I said, "What's that?" It kind of surprised me. It looked like a cigarette I was thinking about. And he said, "It's Mary Jane. It's pot. It's a joint." I said, "You want some?" I said, "I'll try it." And I tried it. And it was the first time I'd filled my void and loss with alcohol and drugs. Shortly thereafter, sex. So we didn't talk about sex. I don't know. Hopefully parents are doing it these days. There's so much influx with all the technology and the temptation, because the devil's of this world. He'll jump right in and fill that void and loss of love.
Yes.
And it wasn't that anybody did anything wrong. It was just that we didn't talk about it. And then again, shortly thereafter, I was second-string quarterback in junior high, and we fed into another junior high, into a feeder school for high school. And the first-string quarterback didn't grow that summer, but I did. So I was in the running for first-string quarterback. And again, in practice 2 weeks, first day of school, ready to conquer high school, ready the sports career, going to be the quarterback, all that emphasis on sports. And right after practice, we had a drill called Oklahoma, or Hamburger, where it was a practicing drill for blocking and tackling. I was the linebacker in the drill. 2 linemen, one flew through a block on the guy to push him out of the way, and the running back comes through, and I stuck him, hit him, started driving back. Then the other guys, the 2 linemen, jumped on top, and my cleat was back here. Instead of going backwards, it pushed me straight down and broke my femur right in half. So I won't get into gory details of how that went along there, but the bottom line was, again, I had to listen to the ambulance drivers all the way to the hospital talking about how I was never going to play football again, had a broken leg. And then as I laid in the hospital gurney in temporary traction, crying, I just couldn't wait for my mom to get there and hold my hands. But again, another void and loss, no more football career. I was really angry. We didn't talk about it, because we just didn't talk about it. What could we do different? What could we do next? How could we take something and put it back in there again? And so that's...
So what I'm hearing is that it is really important to talk to your kids.
Got to.
On every subject and everything. Know what they're doing. Be concerned.
Yeah.
And talk to them, because that talking could talk out what is going on in their minds, and especially men, because they tend to hold things back.
Definitely.
You're showing me that you had a love for your mother, and so she would have been able to open you up, and you would have been able to express that, and that would have helped.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
And there's always the enemy out there to give you what you need, so you're saying that he filled that
he
with
did.
the wrong stuff.
He did. And I want to say one thing before we run out of time is my mother gave me birth twice, and all you mothers can do the same thing, and fathers. She gave me birth once in the womb, but the second time she gave me birth is she used to take us to church, and I was not nice. I would be kicking and screaming. I don't know if anybody's experienced that before. I've heard some people say I don't take my kid to church anymore because they raised too much hell about it. Well, the devil doesn't want to go to church, but because my mom made us go to church and help us know about Jesus when I needed it the most, and I was dead and sick and in my addiction, all I had to do was ask Jesus to come into my life and take away my guilt, and it happened like a rush of the wind and cleansed me.
Yes.
That's my recovery story, is the healing power of Jesus Christ.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. I don't want to give the book away, but there is that part where, you had died again, you saw hell, and you knew you didn't want to go there. And in hell, you started praying.
Yes, and that's another reason why you got to take your kids to church. They've got to learn the Lord's Prayer. And it makes sense, because when the disciples asked Jesus, Lord, how should we pray? He taught them the Lord's Prayer. And if you break it down in each of its little pieces, it's got something for everything. Doing will, doing good, prosperity, life and love, and then forgiveness, big
Yes.
key, but delivers from evil.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I won't go into detail about what happened, but as this terrible torment was happening to me in hell, I started just gasping the Lord's Prayer, gasping it. Deliver, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And I couldn't breathe for a while, and this terrible pain was going on. And then finally, when I was gasping, I said, deliver us from evil. Whoosh! I came back. Now, this house I was at, the guy that was there wasn't giving me mouth to mouth and wasn't beating on my chest. He was stealing my stuff in the room where I was at. So it wasn't somebody else bringing me back. God gave me back.
Yes.
Because I used the Lord's Prayer and the power of deliverance for the Holy Spirit.
Yes, yes.
And it makes me also believe it's possible when you get to hell, you can be forgiven still and maybe not go there. So another whole topic, but
Yeah,
maybe we'll talk about it later.
So I see you have a couple of books, and if they wanted to get this book, because we are going, those minutes are, and I want to
Yes.
make sure that they know, where would they go and get your book?
Well, right now I don't, just started promoting the books. I don't have a website, but you can go to Amazon.com. You can go to BarnesandNoble.com, iTunes, also Xulon Press, Xulon Press.com. That's the publisher of the book, but readily available.
Yeah, I went there. That's how I got the picture of you
Oh,
and the
beautiful.
picture of the book
Yes.
and all that information, and stuck it on Facebook so that everybody could tune in. A lot of times when the show was so good, they don't want to call because they don't want to miss anything.
Yes.
So those places you can go to. The main reason why you wrote the book is because you experienced that, but you're trying to help people do what?
Trying to help people, families have hope that their addicted person, their family can get clean and sober. Do not
Yes.
give up on them yet.
Yes.
Don't enable them, but don't give up on them.
Yeah.
And the addict's still suffering to get
Yeah.
hope. And since we're a Christian radio station, I can let out the secret. So many people are interested in this near-death thing because of the psychic phenomena of it all, and everybody wonders what's after life.
Yes.
So I'm hoping some people read it, and maybe they'll come to Christ because of it.
Yes. It's really important to do
secret.
so. Yes. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the show and talking about it. Again, I want to hold this book up so everybody can see it. You can see the poster here. No one really wants to go to hell.
No.
Not and stay there.
No.
The most important thing that I got out of this book is the fact that there really is a heaven
Yes.
and there really is a hell.
Yes, they both exist, and we can be as self-centered as we want about it and try and think there's not one and not the other, but they do both exist.
Yes. And the best place to go is...
Heaven! Come on up.
Well, I tell you one thing. When God cleans you up, he cleans you up because you look fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I
so
feel great.
You would never know.
I
You would
know.
never know, and that's how good God is,
Yes,
isn't
he
it?
can make a brand new slate from a really dirty board.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I want to thank you again for coming, and go ahead and give your name and tell them one more time before we go off the air where they can get your book.
Yes, I'm Grady Mosby, and a near-death experience. I died and came back from hell. You can get it at Xulon Press, Xulon Press.com, or on your Kindle or iPad at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Open Book Radio. I look forward to seeing and hearing from you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in every Saturday at 2:02 p.m. to Open Book Radio Club, where like-minded people tell their stories. Poets, authors, small businesses, spoken word, and music writers come together as a community. So don't forget, tune in every Saturday at 2:02 p.m. to Open Book Radio Club.
American Family Insurance believes your dreams are what matter most. That's why we offer affordable ways to protect them.
My dream is to own a second car and a house with a 2-car garage to keep it in.
My dream is to start my own business and make my son my first employee.
Whatever your dream, we can help protect it.